Martha stepped into the small, noisy community center, holding a worn-out leather dart case close to her chest. The building smelled of popcorn, old carpet, and fresh coffee. Around her, people laughed, chatted, and practiced their throws at dartboards, pinned to the walls. It was the annual city dart tournament. Big for the neighborhood, small for the world, but everyone here took it seriously. She didn't look like a regular player. Martha wore a baggy brown cardigan over a floral dress, and her white sneakers squeaked softly with every step. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun. She looked more like someone who had wandered in looking for a knitting circle than someone ready to compete. As she walked past a group of loud players warming up near the front, a few eyes followed her. Two young men in matching jerseys elbowed each other and snorted. "You see that?" one of them muttered with a grin. "Grandma's about to show us her bingo skills. Hope she doesn't trip over the line," the other chuckled. Martha didn't say a word. She heard them. Of course she did. But she kept her eyes forward and walked slowly toward the registration table. The lady behind the desk gave her a quick glance, almost like she was trying to hide her surprise. "Are you here for the tournament?" she asked kindly. "Yes," Martha said with a small nod. "Name's Martha Ellis. I signed up last week." "Oh, yes, here you are," the lady said, tapping a clipboard. "You'll be in Group B. First match starts in 30 minutes. Martha nodded again and took her name tag. As she turned around, the laughter from the young players continued behind her. They weren't trying very hard to be quiet about it. She walked over to the far end of the room where a few practice dartboards stood empty. Her movements were slow, careful, like someone used to watching more than being seen. She placed her case gently on the table beside her and opened it. Inside were 3 darts with worn tips and faded red flights. Nothing flashy, nothing modern. They looked like they'd been used for decades, and they had. Martha picked one up and rolled it between her fingers. She stared at the dartboard for a long second. The noise of the room faded into the background. Then she stepped up to the line. Her first dart missed. It hit the edge of the board and bounced off, clattering to the floor. More laughter came from across the room. Someone let out a fake gasp. Martha didn't react. She picked up another dart, adjusted her stance, and aimed again. This one hit the board. Not close to the center, but it stuck. She took a breath, and a memory flickered in her mind. A small pub, dim lighting, and a man's voice telling her, "Relax your shoulder, Martha. Let it glide." She raised her third dart slowly. Maybe she didn't look the part. Maybe they had all already decided what kind of player she was. But Martha had shown up for a reason, and she hadn't come to lose. Martha stood quietly at the edge of the room, still holding her last dart. She didn't throw it yet. Instead, she watched the other players. Some were stretching their arms. Others were throwing practice rounds like they were showing off. A few had bright jerseys with their nicknames printed on the back. They talked loudly, laughed harder, and carried themselves like champions. She wasn't one of them. She didn't even try to look like she was. "What's she doing here?" someone whispered behind her. Martha didn't turn around, but she heard every word. "Must have wandered in from the library?" Another voice said, followed by snickering. "Maybe she's here to clean the place after the tournament." The comments weren't meant to hurt. They were meant to get a laugh, and they did. Martha bent down, picked up the dart that had bounced off earlier, and gently placed it back in her case. She wasn't upset. She had heard worse in her life, and most of the time, it wasn't even personal. People just liked to laugh at what they didn't understand. Still, the room felt colder now, not because of the temperature, but because she knew what everyone thought. The announcer's voice came through a speaker above the dartboards. "Group B players, please gather for your first matches. Brackets are posted near the front." Martha closed her case, took a deep breath, and made her way to the bracket board. Players swarmed around it, elbowing their way in to see who they were up against. Martha waited until the crowd thinned. She scanned the names and found hers at the bottom. Round 1. Martha Ellis versus Trey Lightning. She looked around the room and spotted Trey right away. He was tall, in his late 20s, and had a confident strut. His jersey had a lightning bolt on it, and he wore flashy white shoes that looked too clean for a tournament like this. When he saw Martha approaching the lane, he raised his eyebrows and smirked. "No way," he said under his breath, but loud, enough for those around him to hear. "This must be a warm-up round." A few players nearby chuckled again. Martha walked to her lane, calm and steady. Trey was bouncing on his feet, tossing a dart from one hand to the other. "You ready, ma'am?" he asked with a grin. Martha nodded. "Always." The official stepped up, holding a clipboard. "Standard rules. Best of 3 rounds. Trey, you're up first." Trey gave a little salute, turned, and threw his first dart. It landed near the bullseye. A good shot. People clapped. He threw, his second, solid again. "Not bad for a warm-up," he said with a wink. Martha didn't say anything. She watched the darts, not the man. "Your turn, Miss Ellis," the official said. Martha stepped up to the line. The room got a bit quieter, not out of respect, just curiosity. Everyone wanted to see what this grandma would do. She held the dart gently, took a deep breath, and let it fly. Martha's dart flew through the air, slicing silently toward the board. It landed with a sharp click, but not near the bullseye. It hit the outer edge of the board, close to the 20 segment. The room barely reacted. Some people shifted in their seats, others whispered. A few smirked, clearly expecting her to fail again. She didn't flinch. She reached into her case and pulled out another dart. Her fingers were steady, but her first 2 throws in practice had been shaky. It wasn't because she didn't know how to play. It was because it had been a long time since she'd stood in front of a real dartboard in a competition. Martha adjusted her stance. Her feet were planted firmly on the ground, about shoulder-width apart. She raised the dart, felt its weight, and let it go. This time, it hit closer to the center, right on the 16. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to keep her confidence from slipping. The younger players nearby whispered again. "Look at that," one said. "She might actually have some skill, or beginner's luck," another replied, laughing, softly. Martha ignored them. Her focus was on the board, on the dart, on the quiet rhythm of her breathing. She remembered the nights at the old pub when she and her husband would throw darts for hours. The gentle clatter of the boards, the smell of wood smoke and beer, and the soft cheers of friends cheering each point. Those memories gave her strength. She picked up her last dart for practice. She aimed carefully, and this time, the dart struck dead center. A perfect bullseye. A few heads turned. Someone whispered, "Did you see that?" But the laughter hadn't stopped. If anything, it had grown louder in the corner where the young players were gathered. They weren't used to seeing someone like Martha hit a bullseye on her first real try. It confused them, and they didn't know how to handle it. Martha closed her eyes for a moment. She wasn't there to prove them wrong. She was there to prove something to herself. She walked away from the practice board and found a quiet spot to sit. She took out a small photo from her cardigan pocket. It was a picture of her and her husband, smiling and holding hands, standing next to a dartboard much like this one. "This one's for you," she whispered softly. Time passed quickly. The tournament announcer called players to their starting positions. Martha stood up, placed her case on the floor, and took a deep breath. The room was buzzing with energy, but inside she was calm. The moment had come. She would face her first opponent soon. No one expected much. No one thought she had a chance. But Martha was ready. She wasn't just a simple woman with a dart case anymore. She was a competitor. And the game was about to begin. The room was buzzing with quiet tension as Martha stepped up to the line for her first official match. The chatter slowed, and all eyes turned toward her. She could feel the weight of those looks, some curious, some doubtful, others just surprised. The whispers from before still floated around, but now everyone wanted to see what this quiet woman could do. Her opponent, Trey, stood opposite her with a confident smirk, bouncing lightly on his feet. He tossed a dart between his fingers like a pro, flashing his flashy white shoes. "Ready to lose?" he teased, voice loud enough for nearby players to hear. Martha didn't answer. She just took a deep breath, steadying herself. She felt the familiar rough texture of the dart in her hand and remembered the old advice her husband had once given her. Breathe, aim, release. Simple steps, but powerful. The official gave the signal, and Trey went first. His dart flew fast and landed near the bullseye, a solid start. He grinned at the crowd and threw again, hitting another high score. Murmurs rippled through the room. He was clearly the favorite. Then it was Martha's turn. She raised her arms slowly, blocking out the noise and the eyes. Her heart beat steady but strong. She focused on the center of the board and let the dart fly. It struck the bullseye, a perfect score. The room froze. The laughter stopped. Jaws dropped. No one had expected that. Martha's calm expression didn't change, but inside she felt a quiet thrill. People whispered, "Did she really just hit a bullseye on her first throw?" Impossible. Trey blinked, suddenly less sure of himself. Martha picked up her second dart, feeling more confident now. She remembered the long afternoons spent practicing, the countless games played in smoky pubs, and the quiet pride she felt when she got it right. She aimed again. This dart hit the triple 20. Another perfect shot. The crowd grew silent. Some players exchanged nervous glances. Martha's steady hand was no joke. Her last dart of the round was crucial. She took her time, held it carefully, and released it with smooth control. Bullseye again. 3 perfect shots in a row. The official marked her score, and the room burst into applause. Loud and genuine this time. Even Trey clapped, though his smile was tight. Martha nodded politely, not celebrating but clearly proud. She stepped back, ready for the next round. The unexpected had happened. The quiet woman, mocked and doubted, had just delivered a perfect first match, and the tournament was only beginning. The room was buzzing with quiet tension as Martha stepped up to the line for her first official match. The chatter slowed, and all eyes turned toward her. She could feel the weight of those looks, some curious, some doubtful, others just surprised. The whispers from before still floated around, but now everyone wanted to see what this quiet woman could do. Her opponent, Trey, stood opposite her with a confident smirk, bouncing lightly on his feet. He tossed a dart between his fingers like a pro, flashing his flashy white shoes. "Ready to lose?" he teased, voice loud enough for nearby players to hear. Martha didn't answer. She just took a deep breath, steadying herself. She felt the familiar rough texture of the dart in her hand and remembered the old advice her husband had once given her. Breathe, aim, release. Simple steps, but powerful. The official gave the signal and Trey went first. His dart flew fast and landed near the bullseye, a solid start. He grinned at the crowd and threw again, hitting another high score. Murmurs rippled through the room. He was clearly the favorite. Then it was Martha's turn. She raised her arms slowly, blocking out the noise and the eyes. Her heart beat steady but strong. She focused on the center of the board and let the dart fly. It struck the bullseye. A perfect score. The room froze. The laughter stopped. Jaws dropped. No one had expected that. Martha's calm expression didn't change. But inside she felt a quiet thrill. People whispered, "Did she really just hit a bullseye on her first throw?" Impossible. Trey blinked, suddenly less sure of himself. Martha picked up her second dart, feeling more confident now. She remembered the long afternoons spent practicing, the countless games played in smoky pubs, and the quiet pride she felt when she got it right. She aimed again. This dart hit the triple 20, another perfect shot. The crowd grew silent. Some players exchanged nervous glances. Martha's steady hand was no joke. Her last dart of the round was crucial. She took her time, held it carefully, and released it with smooth control. Bullseye again. 3 perfect shots in a row. The official marked her score, and the room burst into applause, loud and genuine this time. Even Trey clapped, though his smile was tight. Martha nodded politely, not celebrating but clearly proud. She stepped back, ready for the next round. The unexpected had happened. The quiet woman, mocked and doubted, had just delivered a perfect first match, and the tournament was only beginning. The applause slowly died down, but the room stayed unusually quiet. Everyone was still staring at Martha, who had just shocked the entire tournament with her perfect round. Whispers filled the air, but this time they were different. They weren't mocking or laughing. They were full of surprise and a little respect. Martha stepped back from the line, her face calm, but inside she felt a small rush of excitement. The players nearby looked at her with new eyes. Some nodded quietly. Others seemed unsure how to react. Trey, her opponent, was now silent. The confident smirk was gone, replaced by a tight-lipped frown. He shuffled his feet and glanced at the scores on the board. Martha's perfect score sat there, bright and clear, impossible to ignore. "Beginner's luck," someone whispered from the crowd, but the voice was shaky, unsure. No one really believed it. The next matches began, and Martha kept moving forward, round after round. Each time she stepped to the line, the room held its breath. Her throws were steady and focused. She didn't rush, didn't show any emotion. Just quiet determination and skill. With every dart, the whispers of doubt faded. The young players, who had once laughed, were now watching closely, some even nervously. She wasn't just a lucky shot anymore. She was a real contender. At one point, a player leaned over to a friend and said, "She's got the kind of control you only get after years of practice, maybe more." Martha remembered the years she had spent playing quietly in pubs, with her husband at her side, learning each move slowly and carefully. This wasn't beginner's luck, it was experience, hidden beneath a simple appearance. As the day went on, Martha won more matches. Her name moved up on the board, climbing steadily toward the final rounds. The room's energy changed from mocking to curious to admiring. She noticed some players trying to copy her stance or the way she held the dart. A few came over before their matches, quietly asking for tips. Martha smiled gently and shared small pieces of advice, remembering how kind her husband had always been when she was learning. The final match was getting closer. Martha felt the weight of all the eyes on her, but she also felt something stronger, a quiet pride and peace inside. She wasn't just there to prove the crowd wrong. She was there because she loved the game, and she wanted to play her best. That night, Martha sat alone in the community center, cleaning her darts carefully. She thought about how far she had come, and how the game wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about showing up, trying, and finding strength in unexpected places. No one would forget the quiet woman who surprised them all, who didn't just play, but played with heart and skill. And that was just the beginning. The final match was about to begin. The room was packed. More people than before had come to watch, drawn by the story of the quiet woman who stunned everyone. Martha stood at her lane, her hands steady, eyes calm. Her opponent was a young man named Jake, known for his fast throws and flashy style. He smiled confidently, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes when he looked at Martha. "Ready to lose?" Jake teased, though his voice wasn't as loud as Trey's had been. The crowd chuckled, waiting for the game to start. Martha didn't respond. She just took a deep breath and focused on the board. The years of practice, the memories, and the quiet determination all came back to her. She wasn't here to talk. She was here to play. Jake went first, throwing 3 quick darts. His shots were good. 2 near the bullseye, 1 in the triple. 20. The crowd clapped, impressed. Now it was Martha's turn. She stepped up, held the dart lightly, and took her time. The room fell silent. She aimed carefully and released. The dart flew smooth and landed in the bullseye. A few people gasped. Martha smiled slightly but didn't say anything. She reached for her second dart. This one hit the triple 20 segment. The crowd was whispering now. This was no beginner's luck. Her last dart of the round was the most important. She steadied her hand, remembered her husband's voice, telling her to relax and let the dart glide. She threw. It hit the bullseye again, 3 perfect shots. Jake's face tightened. He tried to shake it off and prepare for his next round, but the tension was clear. The match went back and forth. Martha was steady, calm, and focused. Jake was fast, skilled, but nervous now. He missed a few shots that would have scored points. Martha didn't. With each round, the crowd's cheers grew louder for Martha. Some players who had doubted her before were now standing, clapping, and cheering her on. The energy in the room had shifted completely. When Martha threw the final dart to win the match, the room erupted in applause. People were on their feet cheering for the woman who came in quietly and surprised them all. Jake shook her hand and smiled genuinely. "You earned this?" he said. Martha nodded, feeling a mix of joy and relief. She wasn't just a simple woman anymore. She was a champion in this room, and she had proved it with every throw. As she held the small trophy given to her, she thought about her husband and how proud he would have been. The journey had been long and full of quiet moments, but it had all led to this moment of victory. The dart tournament was more than a game now. It was a story about showing up, believing in yourself, and surprising the world when you least expect it. After the final match, the community center was filled with smiles and congratulations. People came up to Martha, shaking her hand, patting her on the back, and asking questions about her game. The same people who had mocked her earlier were now impressed, some even a little humbled. Martha smiled gently. She didn't expect to win, and she didn't need the applause. What mattered most was that she had returned to something she loved and showed herself. She still had the skill and the heart. As the crowd slowly dispersed, a young woman approached her. She held a set of shiny new darts and a hopeful look in her eyes. "I saw you play," the woman said softly. "You inspired me. Would you teach me sometime?" Martha's eyes softened. She thought about all the years she spent quietly practicing, the patience her husband had shown, and the way learning felt like a gentle journey. "I'd like that," she said. Later that evening, Martha sat alone at a small table, carefully cleaning her old darts. She looked around the now empty room, the dartboards hanging quietly on the walls. The air smelled faintly of popcorn and coffee still, but it felt different now, full of memories and promise. She thought about the people who laughed and doubted her, and how their words had made her stronger, not weaker. She thought about her husband and how proud he would have been to see her standing tall among the players. Martha reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out the photo of them together by the old dartboard. She smiled and whispered, "This is just the beginning." She packed her darts carefully into her worn leather case. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky with soft pinks and oranges. Martha took a deep breath, feeling a new kind of peace inside her. The dart tournament had been more than just a game. It had been a reminder that no matter how simple or quiet someone seems, they can surprise the world with what they are capable of. And for Martha, this was not the end of her story, but a new chapter, one filled with practice, friendship, and perhaps even more victories. As she walked out of the community center, her steps were lighter, her heart fuller, and her smile brighter. The world was ready to see what she could do next.